Good morning, Foam Foot 420. Let's see here. Steve DeRocco, good morning on a Taco Tuesday. Luisa Alanis, good morning. Hector Gomez, good morning. Hector Gomez building the 60-foot statue of Sonny Melendrez to be right next to the 30-foot Jesus. I watched a movie on Apple Plus last night, Finch, with Tom Hanks and a great dog and a robot. A man and his dog and a robot. Luisa Alanis says, welcome back, Dave. You were missed. Woo! I don't know if you heard him. Yeah, his mic's off, Luisa. He said it's nice to be loved. Here we come. Woo! Sam Tobias, Dave Emilio, welcome.
Chris Duel.
It is a Taco Tuesday in the month of November 9th, 2021. Monday Night Football last night. It was a tight one. There was referee shenanigans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers win 29-27. Very quietly, the Pittsburgh Steelers are compiling, as they always do, a good record. They're 5-3. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. The live video feed is up and running. Dave Ayler is back as our soundscape stylist. You can see all three of us on the live video feed via Facebook Live, Ticket 760's Facebook page, AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page, Twitter accounts for both of those radio stations, YouTube, where we already have a good friend joining us on YouTube this morning as well. And you will see Shannon Salty Sweeney wearing her burnt orange University of Texas warm-up jacket. Shannon, what is up this morning?
Good morning, sir. I'm excited. We're a basketball school. I'll get a little more in depth in it during the Salty Shakedown today, but the Chris Beard era officially begins.
Funny to say we're a basketball school. Are you disowning
we're also
football?
A soccer and volleyball school.
Are you disowning football now at 4 and 5? Is that where we are now?
Did I not just say soccer? Football?
I'm an American.
Big game coming up against SMU. And then, volleyball undefeated. So, we don't have any problems over here on the 40 acres.
Other than that little old football team. Woo!
I'm fine.
Speaking of Longhorn football and basketball and all sports, because she covers it all, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, going to join us just after 8 o'clock in a couple of hours from now, less than 2 hours from now. We'll certainly talk about that Texas Longhorn football team and the loss at Iowa State and the upcoming game against Kansas. But we might just get into basketball, soccer, God knows what else that's happening on the 40 acres. Why the hell not? As Kinky Friedman would say, and he's a graduate of the University of Texas.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Unfortunately, at this point, I think we know exactly what Texas football is. And there's only so much you can say.
What are there, 3 games left in the regular season? I think so. I think there's 3 left.
Kansas this weekend, followed by West Virginia and Kansas State. Yeah.
I got my trusty Texas Longhorn pocket schedule, which I don't leave home without it because you never know when you might need to whip it out and see when the next game is. But yeah, 3 games left. They're 4-5. Is that correct? I think so. So you win those, you go 7-5, and you maybe get. I think if you're the Longhorns and you go 7-5, you're getting a bowl game. Right? Mm-hmm. If you go 6-6, you might get one.
It's not going to be. I have a feeling if they become bowl eligible, it'll be the Texas Bowl for them this year.
But I would think at this point, and all right, if you're Sark, or if Sark calls you into his office today, Shannon, and he might, he probably listens to the show and realizes what a hardcore Texas Longhorn alum and fan you are. And if he says salty, because Jeff Traylor now calls you salty, so I'm sure Sark would.
It's around.
If he says salty, all right, 3 games left. Kansas at DKR this weekend. Then we go to Morgantown the next week. Then we got Kansas State here, and then a bowl game. We hope. What should our goals be? How would you respond to Sark looking across the big desk from him, seeing the big Longhorns behind him? We once saw a photo of his desk. Yeah. And the portrait behind him. So what are the goals now with 3 games left in the regular season?
I mean, it might be a little bit of a selfish goal for me, but I want to be very clear on who our quarterback is going to be to start the next season, which means they would have to establish themselves within the last 3 games. Because once again, we're back to who's going to be the starter. They're going to figure that out this week in practice. And that, again, doesn't mean that one guy goes in and you don't end up seeing the other guy a little bit later in the game. And that's where we started this season. That's where we kind of felt things went off maybe a little bit in Arkansas. And also just some discipline on the O-line and giving the quarterback, whoever's back there, the time of day to make decisions and not have to be so quick on their feet. I mean, I think that's one of Casey Thompson's where that's a strength for Hudson Carve. He knows when to take the check down. Casey Thompson has a harder time deciding when and when not to run. And when you have an O-line that doesn't give you time to think, you suffer the consequences more time than not. So to me, I want to see Texas establish a guy at that position because, as we know, the quarterback is the leader of the entire team. Yes, mostly of the offense, but I think a team feels better going into a game being like, that's our guy, and we know what we have in that guy, versus everything might change if someone else goes in.
And how many years are we away from Arch Manning? Are we 2 years away from Arch Manning?
Class of 2023.
Is he class of 2023?
He's a sophomore this year in high school.
Oh, my God. And I even saw last week, I forgot where he was, but I'm seeing on Twitter, Arch Manning is making a visit to Clemson. It's amazing just the buzz around that kid already. And he's just, I would have thought he's a senior or a junior and he's just a sophomore.
If I'm Arch Manning, I'm looking at Texas thinking, wow, what a mess. This could ruin my potential in the NFL, even though he's got that name Manning, so it probably wouldn't. Or I can be the savior and come in here and make everything better and only up my stock that much more. And I think in the NIL going on, anywhere he's going to get deals because of that last name. But a place like Texas has proven, whether they're good on the field or not, they get the impressions, they get the views. There's money to be made.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't go to Alabama. That would just, I would be sickened if he goes to Alabama.
I think Peyton and Eli would be too, as guys who played for Tennessee and Ole Miss respectively.
There you go. And his grandfather, Archie Manning, from whom he is named Arch Manning also went to Ole Miss. So I'm hoping he, A, doesn't go to Tennessee or Ole Miss. Be your own man, blaze your own trail, but please don't go to Alabama.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, Tennessee, like coaching, I don't know if that's where that's going to be. And then like Ole Miss, I just don't see the Mannings being like, yeah, go play for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, that's true.
Bit of a basket.
Yeah. But you do make an interesting point as well, though, as Arch Manning and other recruits, but we're talking about Arch Manning in particular right now, surveys the landscape and says, where do I want to go? Where am I going to have the best chance, A, to develop myself as a quarterback? And, of course, Sark is kind of known as a quarterback whisperer. That's a good thing. But secondly, I'm sure he also wants to go to the college football playoff and win national championships. And if that's a big consideration right now, then sadly, Alabama, Georgia, and although they're a little down, but they're still undefeated this year, Oklahoma are probably high on that list as well.
Well, and it certainly doesn't help the narrative. It was announced yesterday, Joshua Moore, no longer with the Texas team. The wide receiver has left the building. He will be entering the transfer portal. Of course, last week, prior to the Iowa State game, there was an altercation that took place at practice. Sark was asked about it. He said he just was getting coached hard. There's a misconception that because I'm a player's coach, we don't coach hard, but we coached hard. That's all it was. Cut to, he's now leaving the program. Obviously, Joshua Moore has some history. He was out for, I think, the 2019 season following, I think, a gun charge. But he seemed to have turned the corner when he came back. I mean, his attitude was great. He said, he was so hurt by his own actions and the punishment he had to suffer. He wanted to be out there with his team that he had really just kind of turned a corner. He's obviously made some spectacular plays. So, it does leave some questions from the outside looking in. Why is he really leaving? Is this a Joshua Moore thing, or is it a Texas and culture thing?
So many questions, and we will have some answers this morning on this show. As we mentioned, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, going to join us just after 8 o'clock. 3 times this morning, once in just a few seconds, you're going to get a chance to win $1,000. The Grand in Your Hand cash contest is seconds away. We do the first one at 6:20, and we do it 20 after the hour, every hour until 9:20 at night. And yes, somebody wins $1,000 every single hour. It's absolutely crazy. You may as well get in on that. We mentioned the live video feed. We're up on Facebook Live. We're up on Twitter. We're up on YouTube. You interact not only with us live and in real time, but very cool people across the great state of Texas and actually around the world dive in with us on the live video feed. But since it's 6:20, let's get this party started. We'll do this again at 7:20, 8:20, all day and into the night. Here it is, the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. Good morning, Beth Settle.
Text the nationwide keyword Bill to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's Bills to 200-200.
Bills and $1,000 could pay a lot of your bills. The man who fired off that sounder, he's back after blowing us off for a couple of days. I think last Friday and on Monday. The one, the only, the lovely and talented Super Dave Ayler. What is up, Dave?
Chris, Shannon, it's good to be back. Feels good to be down at this end of the building.
Yes.
And the Steelers won last night, an ugly win.
That's right. You're a Steelers fan.
Yes.
Why did I not make that connection immediately?
It was an ugly win, but an ugly win is still a win.
And, I alluded to this earlier, Dave, and again, you're a Steelers fan. And as a Cowboys fan, I'm pretty envious, although at the moment, the Cowboys at 6-2 have a better record than the 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. However, and the Steelers, a lot of people thought they were going to be down this year, and you could argue maybe they're a little down from where they are, but they're so consistent. And even when people go, oh, Ben Roethlisberger's old, and even last year they get off of that 11-0 start, and everybody's that's the weakest 11-0 team I've ever seen. Well, I'd sure like the Cowboys to be 11-0 someday. Steelers just the model of consistency. They just find a way to keep on keeping on and be right there in the mix. And here they are again. Like you said, it was an ugly win last night, 29-27 over the Chicago Bears, but they get the win, and 5-3, they're in the battle in the AFC.
Yeah, I predict them to go 9-8 And so, I don't think Tomlin's had a losing season since he's been there. And 9-8 might get a wild card spot, but I don't think they'll go very deep into playoffs with the team they have now.
And you mentioned
but
Mike.
I'll take it. I take 9-8 and the way the season's been going.
Well, and that's one of the reasons, Mike Tomlin, the Steelers are known for just very seldom changing coaches. Whether it's Chuck Noll or Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin, you find a good, competent guy and you support him and you give him what he needs to do his job. And for the most part, ownership stays out of it. And that sure doesn't sound like the Dallas Cowboys. Shannon.
Mike Tomlin, I just want to ask Dave here because I know we touched on it, but Mike Tomlin being asked earlier in the season about potentially going to take on a college gig, and he lashed out and how ridiculous, and he walked out of the presser. I feel like he should be asked that every week just so we get some sort of reaction like that. It's fantastic clickbait. But your thoughts on Mr. Tomlin, Dave?
I think he's good. I think he's kind of coming to the end, maybe of his expiration date's coming up. Maybe.
Now, why do you say that? Because he's a relatively young guy as far as coaches go.
I just think that depending on what happens with Big Ben on the offseason and whether Aaron Rodgers comes in or what they do, because once Roethlisberger leaves, the team's not going to be very good.
Mike Tomlin is 49 years old, sir. I just want to point that out. 49 years old.
The grass isn't always greener.
Well, they could do a lot worse, but
they could do a lot worse. He's one of the best, most consistent coaches in the NFL.
You just said you don't think he's ever had a losing record.
They could do a lot worse than Mike Tomlin.
Wow. They haven't been to a Super Bowl in a while.
Okay. I will trade you Mike McCarthy.
No, like I said, the Steelers could do a lot worse, and Mike McCarthy isn't as good. But he's the longest tenured coach in the NFL right now. I'll stick with him. I think he's a great coach. And if I was playing football, I'd play for him in a second. But I think there might be a change, say, in the last – if they don't go to a Super Bowl in the next 3 years and they start having losing seasons, I think it might be time to move on. It's
interesting you bring up Mike McCarthy because I think that was – and what was that, like the 2011 Super Bowl? It was Packers, Steelers in Dallas. I was up there covering that, and it was freezing cold in Arlington. There were ice and snowstorms, which was crazy because they thought it was going to be a warm weather Super Bowl, and it was not. But I think wasn't that the last time Mike Tomlin has taken a team to a Super Bowl? And same for Green Bay, McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers. That was it. Green Bay versus Pittsburgh. I think it was the 2010 season, and so I think that was February of 2011. I think I'd have to Google it.
I think the last time they went to Super Bowl is when they played
Arizona.
Yeah.
So the Arizona was after that. Okay,
I think so.
All right. I'm pretty sure that was the one and only Mike McCarthy Super Bowl. And
a quick story about that Super Bowl is my parents at the time, they were living in Phoenix, and they had season tickets to the Cardinals. And so when the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl, they got Super Bowl tickets. They got them at a discounted rate.
Nice.
Because they were season ticket owners. And there's nothing worse than having your mom come at you and trash talking you. And because she was talking trash, and they saw a great Super Bowl.
Sure was, down to the wire.
Yeah, nothing worse than getting trash talked by your mom.
It's nothing like some your mama jokes coming from your mom.
And mom is kidding. And imagine if Arizona would have won that Super Bowl.
I'd still be hearing about it.
Mom could trash talk you forever. Wow. All right. We got a lot going on, lots to talk about in the NFL. Of course, we always talk Dallas Cowboys, and we should, and we will. College football and college sports. We'll talk about the playoff positioning for college football. We'll talk Texas Longhorns, Taylor Estes of Horns 24/7 just after 8 o'clock. UTSA undefeated. We had UTSA head football coach Jeff Traylor yesterday. That's certainly part of the conversation. NBA, Steph Curry goes off last night. I think he got 50. Steph Curry goes for 50 last night, and the Golden State Warriors are 9-1. They're back like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't go away. They're a model of consistency. We'll talk about them as well. Shannon's Salty Shakedown in the 7 o'clock hour, sports history, sports birthdays. And coming up next, the high five play of the day. You want to jump in here? You are always welcome. 800 800-707-9760. 800-707-9760. Texas Tech has a new football coach. We'll talk about him as well. Lots going on between now and 9 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. Welcome in Taro Kotani. Taro Kotani from Tokyo. Who else do we have in here? Beth Settle, good morning. Going in order on my list, people that I see, and there are 14. If I see you, I say hi, and if you comment, we see you. Foamfoot 420, Steve Duraco, Luisa Alanis, Hector Gomez, Sam Tobias, Dave Emilio Castanuela, Wes Perkins with the new head coach at Tech, Ralph Balderas, Anthony Del Toro, John Williams from Dallas, Marco Menchaca, hip check, 15 yards. Yep, refs last night were a little rough. Beth Settle, good morning. Lucinda Sullivan with a coffee emoji. I'm about to get coffee myself. And Foamfoot 420 says UTSA basketball starts today as well. So you got the Longhorns and UTSA. Where is my huge coffee delivery device? There it is. All right, grabbing me some coffee. It's weird. This camera keeps getting repositioned, I believe, by the sports grind people. Jonas Clark. Mike Harge isn't in here. He does that from Dallas. Excuse me, from Austin. Don't know why I had Dallas on my mind. Cowboys, probably. All right. The SpaceX crew returned to Earth. 4 astronauts splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico. When I was a kid, we knew all the astronauts' names. And liftoff, the mission, and splashdown were always a big, big deal. We would stop what we were doing to watch that on television. Now it's like, meh. People came back from space. Meh. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. Trying to find when the college football playoff rankings happen. Anybody on Facebook know that? Is it always a nighttime thing? Is it a nighttime primetime reveal? Let me see here. Let's see. It was 6 p.m. our time on November 2nd. Is it always 6 p.m.? Oh, okay. Now I'm looking at something. It says it's 8 o'clock tonight, which is weird. There, I just put what I saw. I don't know if that'll play well in the comments, but those are Eastern time. So tonight, according to a website I just found, the rankings will be released at 8 o'clock tonight. Now, why is there an asterisk by that? Oh, it's between games at the Champions Classic on ESPN. So apparently ESPN tonight is having the Champions Classic. What the hell is the Champions Classic? Champions Classic. Who are these champions that are playing basketball tonight? I'm clicking on it. And nothing's coming up. Madison Square Garden. Now I have to click on the matchup. I just love clickbait where you got to click multiple times to see what you're looking for. Kansas versus Michigan State, and then Kentucky versus Duke. All right. Kentucky versus Duke sounds, yeah, I guess Michigan State's always good in basketball too. All right, I get it. And then are winners going to play winners the next night? Dave Emilio, off to work. See you later. Thanks for being here. All right. Well, I'm figuring that out little by little. Let's see here. I need do have that. Okay, cool. Here we come.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Welcome back in on a Taco Tuesday. When you get the opportunity today, be sure to do your duty as a Texan and as an American and ingest at least one taco. But how can you have just one taco? I mean, does anybody pull in? I went to Las Palapas after the show yesterday, Shannon, and they've got you go through the drive-through, and they have a healthy menu. So I ordered tacos off the healthy menu at Las Palapas, which were you get avocado or guacamole on a corn tortilla. So I said, give me one of those healthy tacos, guac on a corn tortilla. But you can't just order one. I don't think anybody goes through a drive-thru and orders one taco. So I ordered 2 guacamole tacos on corn. It comes with guac and lettuce and tomato, and they give you a little salsa. They said, do you want let's see, red, green, or what was a brown salsa? I said, give me the red. So but they were good, and I felt healthy, and I did have tacos.
That's good. I'm still waiting. You know, we talked about it when it was announced back in, I think, August, that Austin was going to get a Las Palapas. TBD on location exactly, yes. But I'm still waiting.
We will grant you your Austin Las Palapas as soon as you grant us our San Antonio high five. When you do that, it's a fair hostage exchange. We will give you one Las Palapas for one high five location, and we'll be happy. Everyone will be happy.
Okay.
All right.
I'll see what I can do.
I'm just saying.
I'll see if I have
I went during the break there. I was trying to figure out when the college football playoff rankings are going to be released tonight, because I want to see how much they're going to diss UTSA tonight. Diss them completely.
USTA.
Yeah, USTA, excuse me. Yeah, the United States Tennis
Pay them their respect.
Yeah, exactly. And where they're probably going to rank them like 25 tonight, because there was a bit of an outcry.
Yeah.
They'll probably rank them 20. So I found this listing on last week. It was released on the 4-letter network at 6 p.m. Central Time. Tonight it's going to be 8 p.m. And I'm like, why are you going to do this 8 p.m.? And I found out the rankings show will be released in between games at the Champions Classic tonight on the 4-letter network. Champions Classic basketball from Madison Square Garden tonight. You've got Kansas versus Michigan State at 6 p.m. And then you've got Kentucky versus Duke at 8:30 p.m., both at Madison Square Garden. So in between those basketball games, they will reveal tonight the college football playoff rankings.
Can I just throw out a conspiracy real quick?
Please.
With this whole college football ranking. I mean, obviously, it's very much tied to the 4-letter network. They have the rights to the games. They usually have their Tuesday show, which for some reason, I mean, it feels longer than The Bachelor, where we have to just, I mean, we all know what we're waiting for. Just get to the end. We don't want to sit here, but you're just, apparently they're making so much money off of dragging it out, all the advertisers talking about these schools that should they be and should they be out, when all we really care about now and this time of the season is who is in the top 4 and who the first 2 out might be. Is ESPN, are they picking these teams? Or is there really a committee? Or is ESPN like, listen, our ratings for games are so much higher when XYZ are playing, and ABC isn't going to cut it over here. So, maybe show them some love in the rankings, but you definitely don't put them in the top 4. I don't know. And then, like you mentioned tonight, they're going to spread it out through
Going to make us
these
wait.
games that, I mean, I guess they're decent games, but it's also the beginning of the season, so you don't really know what you have yet in these teams. They're just kind of big blue blood program schools. I don't want to have to sit through all of that just to find out something that should be given to me in a Twitter graphic.
Yeah. And I don't sit through it unless the only way I sit through it is if I'm multitasking. Sometimes there's a Spurs game on during the, and I'll have it on the TV,
Background.
or I'll be multitasking at my computer doing something else. But yeah, for them to want us to sit through it, and it's an hour show, isn't it? Something crazy. And you're right. It's worse than The Bachelor. It's worse than The Bachelor.
I mean, it's one thing, going into the tournament, right, when they have the Selection Sunday show, and you get to go into the rooms with the teams and feel that excitement and energy, and get to relive it over and over with every team getting selected. But this is no. Cancel it. If we need to cancel anything, it's the college football playoff show.
And be careful when you say cancel, because Aaron Rodgers says that people are trying to cancel him. This woke culture is trying to cancel Aaron Rodgers. We'll probably talk some Aaron Rodgers coming up as well. All right, it is time for the High Five play of the day, appropriately sponsored by High Five. That's right. As soon as High Five decides to come to San Antonio, we will allow Las Palapas to go to Austin. There are 2 High Five locations in the Austin area, and they are fabulous. If you love sports, if you love great food, if you love drinks, if you love games, well, they're all at High Five. Big screen TVs everywhere. Great food, great drinks, food specials, drink specials. What are the $2 tacos on a Tuesday, Shannon? Is that right?
Tacos on a Tuesday.
Oh, my God.
Laser tag out at the Lakeway location.
Who needs Las Palapas when you got $2 tacos?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You can go play laser tag and eat tacos, and then right before the show ends, you can then find the top 4 of your college football playoff.
There you go. So it's a win-win. Everybody on a Taco Tuesday. Get into High Five. Shannon, who is most deserving of a high five on this Taco Tuesday morning?
Well, let's keep it within college football, sir. This game was announced late last week. I wanted to take some time to talk about it and give a little high five and show some love. Notre Dame versus Navy will be playing in Dublin, Ireland, August 26th, 2023. I would assume that's week 0, sir, which is a known thing. The tickets go on sale this month, November 23rd of this year. Of course, this was a game that was supposed to take place in Dublin in 2020, and thanks to that little thing called COVID, it didn't happen. But also because of COVID, prior to that cancellation of that game, it was the longest continuous intersectional rivalry up until that point. I think we should still continue it or consider it a rivalry, right? They played last weekend, by the way. Notre Dame won that game 34-6. So hopefully Navy can maybe build up its program a little more in the next 2 years, so that way it's got a little bit more interest and pull. But I like the idea, specifically with these 2 schools going and playing in Ireland. I know we have some thoughts about the NFL going and playing in London, and are those games really worth it? Do they really have that much interest? Do the people really care? But Notre Dame playing in Ireland, it just feels right. It'll be the first international game for these schools since 2012. I'm looking for. I almost am like, do we buy tickets? Do I go to this game? Just because Dublin holds a special place in my heart, so I'm all about it. I can't wait to watch it. Week 0, so I'm sure it will be the only thing anybody's watching anyway. I haven't seen a kickoff time yet, though, Chris. So I'm not sure. I know it's like a 6-hour difference here.
Well, you got 2 years. You got 2 years to adapt to whatever the kickoff is.
To adapt and get ready. But just a high five for them for saying, all right, we didn't get to do it during COVID. It was one of the first games coming back prior to that season that they had to really make a decision on. And the official decision was, we're not going to play it, and we're certainly not going to travel. But for them to reschedule it, because I know a lot of people over in Ireland were probably disappointed too, right? They were probably looking forward to seeing these teams play. They will still get that shot. It'll just be in August of 2023.
It blows my mind, Shannon, that tickets are now on sale. As I've told you and our listeners, I almost, when I go to an event, I almost always just get the tickets right before I go. I'm like a point of purchase guy. Yeah. The one time I got tickets early was the James Taylor Jackson Brown concert. Oh, no. And that's when COVID hit in 2020. And that wound up going all the way until I guess a month ago. I finally saw it. They honored the tickets, but it is crazy that people, it's nearly 2 years, August 26th, 2023. And some people are going to buy some tickets now. That's an early ticket buy. Yeah.
But I guess too, and I don't know what the rules are at the moment of international travel, because I know
it was a big story yesterday. a lot of restrictions were lifted in the United States, and I think therefore around the world. Yesterday was a big day at airports in the USA. A lot of the international travel restrictions have been lifted. We're getting back to normal little by little.
Yeah. And this is a great sign because, again, this is one of the first college games that was axed due to COVID. And so to see it back on the schedule and back in Ireland, I think it's a good sign.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. So you might, are you serious? You might, and you've been to Dublin. You got some green in your blood. You got that Irish thing going on, even though we have checked officially your blood is burnt orange. You do believe burnt orange.
Yeah. But with a name like Shannon Bailey Sweeney, I do have some ties to the motherland that is Ireland. It's also the first place I ever went internationally.
Oh, wow.
So and it's beautiful. It's a fantastic place. The people are wonderful. It's also, if you've never been international before, it was great. I suggested it because people speak English, right? So it's a good way to not go too deep into something, because I do not pick up languages easily or well or maintain any of that knowledge. So I think it's great. And I don't think it's the stadium that this game is going to be, and I think it was Cork Stadium is the one I saw, but they're pretty spectacular stadiums over there, and they love sports. I mean, they're big rugby. Big into that over there, so I'm sure this game we'll see lots of local fans hitting it up.
Now, when you went to Ireland, given your Irish ancestry, did you feel some special? Did you feel, man, these are my people? This is my ancestral homeland. I feel like I'm home, even though I've never been here. Did you feel any of that magic happening?
I don't know about magic, but it was neat when, we had some great tour guides, and obviously they were interested in our story, given that clearly with our name, we had some ties and family that had hailed from there. So that was cool. Very. Yeah, I did feel, I don't know, I felt special. I mean, my name is Shannon. Why not?
Victor or Hector? Victor, let's go to the phone lines. On the phone line right now at 800-707-9760 is Victor. Victor, what's on your mind this morning? Yes. Hector. Yeah, Dave Ayler put Victor up on the screen. That's why I called you Victor. Victor, Hector, it rhymes. So how are you this morning, Hector? Yes.
But back in World War II, Notre Dame wasn't the powerhouse and have all the money that they have now. And when all the young men went off to war, their enrollment was really hurting. And so what Navy did is they established a training camp, a boot camp, there on the Notre Dame campus for training. And of course, Notre Dame got paid, and Notre Dame was able to make it through World War II, the hard times financially that way. And so because of that, Navy and Notre Dame has had a very, very close relationship, and they fostered this rivalry, this game all throughout the time. So just a little kind of footnote there.
Wow, Hector, awesome. That is tremendous backstory that I had never, ever known. That is amazing, man.
Exactly. Notre Dame was a good school then, but wasn't huge or the powerhouse they are now. And so they were really hurting, and Navy did it right by them and helped them out, and boom, here we go.
Hector, thank you for that phone call. Wow. See, when I was a kid in the 70s, Shannon, they used to, again, we only had 3 channels, ABC, NBC, and ABC, and then you also had PBS. So there was every Saturday, there was like Notre Dame football. And it was a package of the previous week's game condensed into like 30 minutes. And I'd always see them playing Navy, and I was like, and they would always beat up on Navy. And I'm like, wow, Notre Dame, that's really big of you guys to take on the Naval Academy and win games 40-16. But Hector telling us how that all began. That's a great story.
Yeah, it's pretty. Now I'm thinking about it, my great grandfather, Patrick Sweeney, played for Notre Dame football, which is shocking because we were probably about the same size, but that was football back then.
Hey,
But then
Rudy was that size
then
as
he
well.
was in the Navy. So now I'm like, when was he actually at that school, and did that have anything to do with him than being in the Navy?
You're going to have to check that out. You're going to have to go through the family ancestry and see who knows what and find out the connection. So now you got to go to that game. So if your great grandfather played for Notre Dame and was in the Navy, my God, and this game's going to be in Dublin.
You need to drum up a couple $1,000 in the next couple weeks.
You got a couple of years
there in 2 years.
Woo.
That was a great call, Hector. Thank you. That was awesome.
That was a tremendous call. Plus, Shannon, you're in the media. You could just get a media credential. You don't even have to get a ticket.
But
Say,
I like being in the stands amongst.
Yeah, because I found out the hard way. They frown upon media drinking in the press box.
Yeah.
Drinking and cheering.
Yeah.
I've been tossed out of press boxes before for drinking and cheering.
Like I have a press pass for Texas, but as long as, because just in case anybody else in my family wants to use the tickets, that way I always have a seat to go to. But when they don't, I will prefer to sit in my seat where I can hold a beer and say whatever I want.
Chris, it is Ireland, so I'm sure there's some drinking going on in that press box.
A little bit.
There's some Guinness going around.
That's true. If you can't drink in the press box in Dublin, Ireland, then where can you drink
Maybe
in a press
fights
box?
Breaking out. You never know.
That's a very good point. I might have to go. There's football and drinking involved?
Yeah. And instead of stat sheets at the end of every quarter, they just refill your beer.
The fight breaks out.
Yes. Very nice. And by the fourth quarter, you see leprechauns. You've been drinking so heavily. All right. Coming up, big 7 o'clock hour. Shannon Salty Shakedown coming up in the 7. Another shot at $1,000 at 7:20. Sports history, sports birthdays. And we'll react to all the big stories, including a new head coach at Texas Tech. We'll get into that as well on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, see, I recognize the name on the caller ID. I recognized the name, and then I thought that's Hector Gomez, and then yeah, I know.
I go, Victor or Hector? He goes, yes. I go, which one?
Right, okay. Funny. Yeah, Hector, if you're on here, I love that. That's a tremendous story. Hector, if you're on here, Dave thought he heard Victor, and so he put Victor on the call screen. And I saw the caller ID. So I said, you sure that's not Hector? And he goes, no, that's Victor. And I thought, okay, it must be Victor. Oh, well, it still worked. Anthony Del Toro says, Rudy is one of the best movies ever. Yeah, we did a thing about 2 years ago. We had a tournament for the best sports movie ever. And I believe Major League won. Of course, I'm partial to Field of Dreams. That's my favorite movie ever. I mentioned to some people, is it called Finch? I saw the Tom Hanks movie that's now out on Apple TV Plus. I think it's called Finch. It's one word. I think it's Finch. It's a man and his dog and a robot in the post-apocalypse. And it's very well done. It may not sound like something you want to see, but Tom Hanks is amazing. The dog is amazing. And this robot he creates is very human. Finch. There you go, Ralph. Thank you. I saw Finch last night. I do recommend it. But this is not really a spoiler. I'm just saying, have your Kleenex ready. Have your tissues ready at the end of the movie. I'm just saying. But very well done. Very well done. All right. Heating up the coffee. I don't have a poll question yet. Anybody got a poll question? I'm thinking about maybe it's what should the penalty be for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers? I might fire that up after I get coffee. Yeah, Sam, currently unranked, but that should change tonight when the rankings come out. I think there was enough of an uproar about the rankings. So I got a feeling it's going to be harder for the ranking committee to blow off UTSA again. What? Hector Gomez. Hector, Victor, Hector. What's your vector, Victor? That was a great call. I had no idea. You know, I know a lot of those stories about the genesis of certain sporting events or traditions. Hector, I did not know that one. I'm glad you called in with it. Frank Valdez, good morning. Foamfoot 420 says, The Fan is one of my favorite sports movies. Jason Paniagua, that's a great poll question. I just wrote up one about the Packers, but I may use that one tomorrow. I like that a lot. Jason's poll question: will Texas be bowl eligible? Now, you're bowl eligible after you win 6 games, correct? So they would have to win 2 out of 3. And Meatloaf says 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Let me see. So Texas is 4-5. That's right. Yep, 4-5. Texas Tech is 5-4 and hosts Iowa State this weekend in Lubbock. Iowa State's quarterback is very Purdy. Brock Purdy to you. OU Baylor this weekend in Waco, number 8 versus number 12. Will OU finally have a loss? We can hope. Here we come. Favorite Thanksgiving side dish, John Williams. Gosh, I love candied sweet potatoes, deviled eggs, green beans, almondine. I love just about everything about the Thanksgiving spread. But yeah, can you believe, what are we, like 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving? Less than 3. 2, almost.
Now, Chris Duel.
Welcome in on a Taco Tuesday. So much to talk about in the world of sports. Had a Monday night game last night. Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Chicago Bears 29-27. Dave Ayler, our resident Pittsburgh Steelers fan, is pleased, satisfied with the win. We're talking NFL football. We're talking college football. We'll get into the NBA. Spurs will play tomorrow night at the AT&T Center. They will take on the Sacramento Kings. I just put up a poll question. In fact, Jason Paniagua on the live video feed had a great idea for the poll question that I saw too late. Maybe we'll make it tomorrow's poll question. His idea is, will the Texas Longhorns become bowl eligible? That means they have to win 6 games. They're 4-5 with 3 games to play. That means they would have to win 2 out of their final 3 games. That's a great question. And oh, by the way, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, going to join us to talk Longhorn football. And I imagine we'll get into some Longhorn basketball and more with her just after 8 o'clock. But Shannon, Aaron Rodgers is the gift that keeps on giving. So I went with Aaron Rodgers. An Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers themed poll question. Do you have that up yet in front of you?
Yes, sir. Asking today, what penalty should the NFL impose on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers for COVID protocol violations? Lots of votes, even though this one just got up. So far, a lot of people with 50% saying no penalty. Nobody is currently voting for suspension for Rodgers. 25% saying fine the Packers, and another 25% saying suspension and a fine.
See, I think if the NFL doesn't do something, and word is there's some experts who have talked to some people at the NFL level that the Packers are going to get a fine. But if you don't, and I'm hearing some people asking for something really harsh. I was watching Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless yesterday on their show, and Shannon Sharp says you got to come down hard on the Packers, and the way to hit them hard is take away draft picks. If you just give him a slap on the wrist and there's no suspension for Aaron Rodgers and there's a monetary fine for the Packers, Shannon Sharp's point yesterday was these NFL teams make a ton of money. So if you fine them, unless it's a crazy amount, it's not going to bother them. It's like, yeah, all right, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000. All right, whatever. Here you go. Here's your check. But if you don't, then you're sending the message to Aaron Rodgers and to the Packers that, you know what, we got these COVID-19 protocols, but not really. It doesn't really apply to you. It's not that big a deal. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I haven't gone through the handbook of exact dealings and operations within the NFL, differences between vaccinated and non-vaccinated players. If anything, I think the team needs to be held responsible for Aaron Rodgers' actions. He is their employee. He is supposed to follow the guidelines, and they are put in place to make sure that he is following the guidelines. And I almost feel like behind the scenes, they had a conversation. You know, Aaron Rodgers, the question is, will he, won't he return? And they probably let him have his way as the Packers organization because they thought, well, we want a happy Aaron Rodgers. And if this is going to make him happy, you know, as long as he doesn't get COVID and it comes out that he doesn't have the vaccine and he told us that he did, then we're going to be okay. And now they're in this position. It's weird. Usually with something like this, you'd say, okay, someone needs to be made an example of, so this doesn't happen in the future. But with COVID, we're moving out of it, supposedly, right? A lot of people are being vaccinated. The numbers are going down. As we talked about earlier, travel is opening back up. So it's not like this is something that should really have to be dealt with in the future, at least not.
I hope you're right.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully. So I also don't know what you would really get out of it by making an example of them other than potentially, okay, the Packers miss the playoffs and then their star ends up leaving the next year. It's a hard one.
Well, and often, Shannon, you come down on the side of rules are rules, and you got to follow the rules. And you know, I just think for future NFL rules, and you violate the rules, that I think they need to come down hard on them. But we will see. I want to dive into college football a little bit here, Shannon. Texas Tech yesterday hires a new head coach. And I just find it interesting. You know, we had heard that they had contacted Jeff Traylor, the head coach of the UTSA Roadrunners. Of course, it's just days after we heard that story, Jeff Traylor and UTSA announced a multi-year, essentially a 10-year extension. Although there's still probably a buyout, almost certainly a buyout involved. If somebody wanted Jeff Traylor enough to pay a big-time buyout, maybe they could have him. Then at the same time, you had Clay Helton out there, Shannon, who was fired as the USC coach, but has been coaching on a pretty high level for a big-time university for a number of years. And until this year, Clay Helton was pretty successful at USC. He winds up at Georgia Southern. So yesterday, Texas Tech hires Baylor associate head coach Joey McGuire. Who? Joey McGuire. I know we've got some hardcore Red Raider alums and fans who participate in the show on the live video feed and call us sometimes, like Wes Perkins and Clint Proctor. And if I'm Texas Tech, and Baylor's been playing very, very well lately, so I guess Joey McGuire has some inside corporate knowledge about how to run a Big 12 football program very successfully, but I'm just not oozing with excitement over this Texas Tech hire.
Yeah, it's not sparkly and shiny, and any of the names I think that were early on perceived as potential candidates where people were really like, okay, I'm going to take this side. It's such a weird, the business of college football just in the last several years, especially with NIL and what we're experiencing now with colleges, getting rid of coaches mid-season and then hiring someone else mid-season, right? The NFL, I don't even know that they do that, right? They get rid of somebody and then there's an interim head coach and it serves as an audition period. And then at the end of the season, they say, okay, you either got the gig or it's going to be this guy. I don't know why I know it's a money game, and I know boosters have a lot to do with it as far as who stays and who goes. But this thing happening in the middle of the season, I still don't think you know what you have in these guys you hire, especially when you're taking an assistant coach who I haven't looked fully at his resume, but has he ever been a head coach before?
To my knowledge, he hasn't.
Big 12 and the Big 12 that's moving on into a new era where they are going to look to find that next Texas, that next Oklahoma. All of these schools that have been in the Big 12 for some time are going to look to become the big brother that they've always wanted to be. And it's going to start with that football program in order to make it so. I don't know much about the hire. It is a little strange, especially with it taking place in the middle of the season, especially with it coming from a coach from another Big 12 school. But if Texas Tech fans are happy, so be it.
Shannon, you asked the question, has he been a head coach before? Yes, at Cedar Hill High School. He led Cedar Hill High School to 3 Texas state championships and 12 consecutive playoff appearances with a 141-42 record.
Listen, I've led the Texas Longhorns to multiple national championships in 2004 NCAA. I've been a head coach too.
Now, I don't want to poo-poo leading Cedar Hill High School to 3 Texas state championships because our good friend Jeff Traylor was a prolific high school coach at Gilmer High School. So you can certainly make that transition and do it in a big way. I'm noticing also, though, according to reporting, Texas Tech also considered Oklahoma defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, which to me brings a little more gravitas coming from that Oklahoma program, and USC offensive coordinator and former Texas Tech quarterback Graham Harrell. See, to me, Graham Harrell brings a lot more sizzle. If you'd have gone Graham Harrell, I'd be a little more dazzled, and to be honest, a lot more dazzled if you brought in Graham Harrell.
I think the Graham Harrell thing, I think what puts a little bit of a nick on him isn't that with the kind of the same game they played with Cliff Kingsbury?
Yes.
And how
look where Cliff Kingsbury is now.
You're right.
Maybe going to the Super Bowl.
So I guess from a Graham Harrell standpoint, yes, please. But from a Tech standpoint, here they are 2.5 years later looking for another head coach.
See, as a USC guy, even when Clay Helton was kind of floundering, I was looking at Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator going, you know what? I'd almost rather have Graham Harrell as the USC head coach than Clay Helton, who was ultimately blown out. And as we mentioned, now the head coach at Georgia Southern. It's almost the same way I feel with the Dallas Cowboys. Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, who took them to that Tom Brady Super Bowl where they were up 28-3 and lost. I almost feel that he and even our boy Kellen Moore, some people now thinking he's head coach material. So I don't know. You talk about it being a money game in college football, and certainly it is in college and pro. But I also think you ideally should make a splash and get people fired up and excited. And, for the Longhorns, certainly Sark did that. Steve Sarkisian, when they brought him in, I just don't know that Joey McGuire does that for Texas Tech.
In comparison to the NFL is a business, right? When people get cut, when they get traded, when they don't make a roster, when they get fired, this, that, the other, it's a business. It was a business decision. It's the best thing for whatever. I agree with all of that. But when it comes to college and the kids that are on these teams, and as we know, so many of those kids, that's going to be their last time putting on the uniform, playing the game that they love. To take their coach away from them mid-season and to make it all about something else and about the money in the middle of the season, because obviously the kids want to go out and win. Obviously they want to be better and better week in and week out. It becomes too much of a business and with the kids kind of taking the brunt of it, right? Because they're recruited to a school based on the culture, and the culture has a lot to do with that head coach. And I'm not saying coaches should never be fired, but just doing this in the middle of the season and saying, it's over, we're done, we've completely given up on you. I mean, that's got to take a toll on an 18, 22-year-old kid, especially when they know they're not playing at the next level, but yet all of a sudden someone else is telling me that my season's over and I need to give up. What?
Well, no, nobody's telling them to give up.
I got to deal with a new stepdad coming in now?
Yeah. Well,
I like the last one.
I know, but you talk about the NFL being a big business, clearly college football and college athletics and college football being the driver for all the economics at a college for the rest of their athletics. The middle of the season stuff is weird. I know, but my thought was when Texas Tech did that, that when you do it, and USC did that as well, although they haven't replaced their head coach yet, that you are signaling to the head coaching universe out there, the other possible head coaching candidates, you're signaling, hey, the USC job is open for business, or hey, the Texas Tech job is open for business. Strangely, for Texas Tech now, middle of the season or second half of the season, to fill that position with Joey McGuire, where we did hear the Jeff Traylor rumors, and had they pulled that off to be able to say, hey, look at 9-0 UTSA, that's our dude, that's who we're bringing in. I mean, that would have been sizzle, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm okay with the firing the coaches in the middle of the season, but it's the rehiring now also in the middle of the season that I'm questioning more and more, particularly when you make a decision like Joey McGuire.
Exactly. Okay. It is 7:20. We do this on the 20s all day and into the night, into 9:20. We start at 6:20. Every hour, somebody wins $1,000. You could win $1,000 right now. It's the grand in your hand cash contest. You'll get a keyword and a place to text it, and here it comes.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword WIN to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's WIN to 200-200.
Got a comment on the Joey McGuire hire at Texas Tech. Chris Gonzalez on our live video feed writes, Joey McGuire has a relationship with Texas high school coaches. Does Graham Harrell have that relationship? Does Clay Helton have that relationship? I think this hire for Texas Tech is a good idea. Well, yeah, and maybe Joey McGuire at the moment has a better relationship. And obviously we talk about the relationship that Jeff Traylor has with Texas high school coaches, but it would seem to me the sizzle that a Graham Harrell would bring, and even I think Clay Helton, just because of the USC thing, brings you a little more sizzle, or would have brought you a little more sizzle than Joey McGuire. I still think those guys walking in the door, I think the sizzle factor is a big deal. And Shannon, we've talked about Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders with no head coaching experience, with no recruiting experience, but he's prime time. He's Deion Sanders. If Deion Sanders walks into my door and I'm a parent and my son is a wide receiver, or name the position, him knocking on my door versus Joey McGuire knocking on my door, I'm going to be a little more excited about Deion Sanders knocking on my door.
Well, listen, I get it. You got to get your start somewhere. You're always going to have your first head coaching job, right? And that'll probably be a knock on you for that first head coaching job until it isn't. I'm a millennial. I live in a world where in applying for jobs, it was entry level, but you need 8 years experience. And I'm like, I would have been 10 years old. You wanted me to be working since I'm 10? Like, that's just the world that we live in. But when it does come to recruiting, I do think it's a fantastic point to be made. Again, when Oklahoma and Texas, SEC already pulls so many kids from Texas high schools. And then you have Oklahoma and Texas who have always done that, but are going to start getting some of those kids that they have previously lost to SEC schools back because of the move to the SEC. I think those ties are going to be considerably more important than they have been in years past, because again, they're going to be dealing with more SEC schools than usual and coming and trying to get kids out of their own backyard. So that's great. But as a first-time head coach at this level, it's going to be, okay, then how do you develop those kids? And that, I think, is where a little bit of the allure of maybe a Graham or a Helton would come in, because we've seen them a little bit more at the higher level. But if he can get kids and bring them in and have bring spark that way, bring sizzle that way by signing some big names, because again, someone's going to be the new big brother of the Big 12. And in Texas Tech's case, they just lose Chris Beard. That basketball program, I don't know what it's going to look like coming this year. I mean, that was kind of their cream of the crop the last couple of years, something to lean on. Look at us, big bad in the Big 12. They're going to need their football team to step it up here too.
Got another comment on the live video feed. This one from Jacob Lutz. Jacob makes a great point. Sark had a lot of sizzle. Where has that gotten UT? Tech has tried sizzle and it hasn't worked. I guess you could make that argument.
Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury had sizzle before that, Mike Leach had sizzle. I believe they should have never gotten rid of Mike Leach. I thought that was a match made in heaven. So yeah, and again, and Jacob, you make an excellent point, and you could even argue, Jeff Traylor, whom we love at UTSA, on the surface, when that announcement was made, it was not necessarily a lot of sizzle, but in retrospect now, and you get to know Jeff Traylor, and you see the culture he has built and the team that he has built and the 9-0 record that he and UTSA have built. And suddenly now Jeff Traylor has a lot of sizzle. So yeah, you can create your own sizzle. Wins create sizzle if you can create the culture and find a way to win.
And as far as Sark and his sizzle, there'll be a lot of diehards that say, well, just wait till he gets his own guys. Just wait.
Yeah.
And that's a fair argument up until a point. But the sizzle is still there, especially again, considering the move to the SEC. And again, with Texas, I think by now, if you don't realize just how embedded in the culture that has just been ingrained, especially in these seniors and these kids that have been there in the past regimes, that it's not just a new coaching staff coming in and trading out the posters on the wall and putting up new motivational whatever. It takes time because clearly the whole giving up in the fourth, giving up in the second half, the bad attitudes, the I'm giving up, I'm walking off this. Those are things that have been institutionalized there, and that is going to take time and a lot of effort to weed that out. And if that's new guys coming in, quote unquote, Sark's guys, then so be it. But that's going to take longer than the 11 months we've had now with Sark at the helm.
Yeah, speaking of the Longhorns, a reminder, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, going to join us in just about a half an hour, just after 8 o'clock, a little over a half an hour. We'll talk not only Longhorn football with her, we'll talk a little Longhorn basketball as well. And coming up in the very next segment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. We're getting a lot of great comments on the live video feed. You're always welcome to join us there. As you can tell, you're interacting not only with us live and in real time, but you're also interacting with a lot of great sports fans from across Texas and around the world. Also coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, another shot at $1,000. We do it on the 20s. Your phone calls welcome. Hector dialed us up a little while ago. You can as well. 800-707-9760. We are talking NFL football, college football. We'll get into the NBA. Steph Curry goes off for 50 points last night for the Golden State Warriors. They are now 9-1. Spurs in action tomorrow night against the Sacramento Kings at the AT&T Center. Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist making the show go. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. We are with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. All right. I need to edit a spot. Actually, 3 of them, but it's find that. Yes. Chris here for the great folks at R&R Auto Glass. Nobody does it better. It's where I take my vehicle. They can replace any piece of glass. I'm editing an R&R Auto Glass spot. All with a lifetime warranty, customer service through the roof. They've even got a mobile service that can come to you if that's what you prefer. UTSA senior discount. Ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money off the already low pricing. Everything's at the website, rnrautoglass.com. R&R Auto Glass. $15th. Chris here for the great people at R&R Auto Glass. It's where I take my vehicle, and people who know about them, they take their vehicle to R&R Auto Glass because they can replace any piece of glass on your vehicle, plus window regulators, camera calibration, all with a lifetime warranty and customer service through the roof. Great pricing. Speaking of discounts as well, they've got a military, UTSA, and senior discount. Ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money. Check out the website, rnrautoglass.com. One more. And there it is. Okay, what was that? Not good. Let's try that again. Nobody does it better than R&R Auto Glass. They are Budo San Antonio, been here since 2006. They'll be here for you. They can replace any piece of glass on your vehicle, plus window regulators, camera calibration, all with a lifetime warranty and customer service through the roof. They've even got a mobile service. They can come to you if that's what you Jerry Lauder, good morning. UTSA and senior discounts. Ask them about the Duel deal. Save even more money off the already low pricing. Everything's at the website, rnrautoglass.com. 19th. Okay. Thank you, Foamfoot 420. Oh, M. Garcia, good morning. That was very nice of you. Thank you very much. Jerry Lauder, good morning. Jerry, tomorrow on the show, comedian Cleto Rodriguez. There's new stuff going on with Cleto. So I know you have frequented the River Center Comedy Club back in the day. Let's see. Oh, I know what I need to look up. Here we come. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
Welcome back on a Taco Tuesday, November 9th. Lots going on in the world of sports, and we are all over it. NFL football, college football, the college football playoff rankings will come out tonight on the four-letter network in between two basketball games that they are airing right around 8 o'clock. That is expected, but as Shannon points out, if you sit through it, it's kind of worse than watching The Bachelor and the roses given out. It just takes forever. So be sure to multitask if you want to have a life to lead. So we'll get into that. Coming up just after the top of the hour, less than 30 minutes from now, we'll talk Texas Longhorn football and basketball with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. Your phone calls along the way, 800-707-9760. You can vote in our poll, which asks you what the penalty, if any, should be against the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers for violating COVID protocols. We'll update that poll voting for you coming up in a few seconds. Fasten your seatbelt. It is time for Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Before that, sports birthdays, and this day in sports history. November 9th, 1965, Willie Mays is named the National League Most Valuable Player. The Say Hey Kid, Say Hey Willie Mays. He was and is amazing. On this day in 1984, boxer Larry Holmes wins the technical knockout over James Bone Crusher Smith. One of the greatest boxer nicknames ever, Bone Crusher Smith. Larry Holmes beats him in 12 rounds for the heavyweight boxing title of the world. Speaking of heavyweight boxing championships, on this day in 1996, Evander Holyfield upsets Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson was seemingly unbeatable at the time. Not anymore in 1996. Evander Holyfield upsets him in an 11th round knockout in Las Vegas to regain the WBA heavyweight boxing title. Evander Holyfield becomes the second boxer ever to win the heavyweight title 3 times. The other guy to do it was somebody named Muhammad Ali, the greatest. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1931, Dave Ayler will be proud. Baseball manager Whitey Herzog, born in New Athens, Illinois. Whitey Herzog was there that night at the Bonaventure Hotel in Los Angeles in the early 80s, the night that I got to meet my favorite baseball player, Johnny Bench. Tommy Lasorda was there that night. I met Whitey Herzog that night. He was nicer to me than Johnny Bench was. Just saying. Born on this day in 1935, again, Dave Ayler will be proud. Baseball Hall of Famer for the St. Louis Cardinals, Bob Gibson, pitcher Cy Young Award winner in 1968 and 1970. He was the National League MVP in 1968, 9-time Major League Baseball All-Star. Bob Gibson, born in 1935 in Omaha, Nebraska. Sadly, he passed away last year in the year 2020.
And they had to lower the mound because of him. They had to change the rules because his ERA was so low in 1968. They lowered the mound after that year.
That is tremendous. Yeah, you're like Hector Gomez giving us stuff we didn't know. Thank you for that.
And Whitey Herzog's known for one of the best trades in baseball history. Some guy named Gary Templeton traded to the San Diego Padres for some guy named Ozzie Smith.
Oof, that kind of worked out for the Cardinals.
Just a little bit.
That kind of worked out. So was Whitey Herzog the manager when Bob Gibson was playing in the 60s? Or I think Whitey was like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, Whitey came to the Cardinals, I think, around 80 or 81.
Okay, very cool. Finally, born on this day in 1942, golfer Tom Weiskopf, who was the British Open winner in 1973. Tom Weiskopf was born in Massillon, Ohio. There you have it. Your sports birthdays, your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, pole assassins, and monkeys, it is time once again for the Salty Shakedown.
Well, you brought up pole assassin, so why not just start with Texas and not Texas football? We've had enough of them for now.
Uh-oh.
We, as of today, Texas Longhorns are a basketball school. Thanks to the beginning of the Chris Beard era. Things get underway tonight, sir, at Club Irwin, 8 o'clock tonight. It's the last season in Club Irwin. So if you've never been, if you want to experience it just one more time, things kick off tonight against Houston Baptist. Now, Chris, they did play an exhibition game. I believe it was on the 1st of November against Texas Lutheran. The score of that game, sir, 96-33.
Ouch.
So if you want to use that as a little bit of a sign of things to come for
it was Texas Lutheran
basketball season.
It wasn't exactly Duke.
Could have been Abilene Christian. We saw how that went in the tournament last year, first round knockout. So therefore, Chris, I'm providing you with my prediction for this year, and I'm speaking these things into existence as I feel like you should do in the sports world. Just for reference, last year it was the weird season. Some games didn't take place because of COVID. The team went 19-8 overall and 11-6 in the Big 12. I've got Texas at 24 plus wins this season, which buys them an in into the tournament. And I think that I don't know that they'll be Big 12 championships because it does come down to that one final game, but I think that they will make the final game of the Big 12 championship. Of course, they were Big 12 championship tournament winners last year, so anything could happen. And I think that they will make it to the Sweet 16 at the very least this year in the tournament, which would be a huge step up from getting knocked out in the first round, and even a bigger step up from all of those years of missing the tournament, which was a big knock on Shaka Smart during his tenure here. Sir, how much do you believe in this new look, new era of Texas basketball? They brought in a ton of recruits. They're ranked really highly, but of course you never know what you're going to get until you see the product for the first time, which will be tonight, Club Irwin, 8 o'clock.
By the way, before I say what I think, Sports Illustrated, I meant to tell you this in the latest edition of Sports Illustrated. It's their college basketball preview. They've got Texas in the Final Four. They've got Texas going to the Final Four. So they know probably a lot more than I do about
16, which is safe.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Sports Illustrated. I'm going to be optimistic. The Chris Beard era. Let's live up to what Sports Illustrated says. Let's go to the Final Four, and if not beyond. And as you say, Texas now becoming a basketball school with football being a bit of a disappointment this year. Chris Beard, let's do this thing. Let's make a lot of noise for Longhorn basketball.
Listen, I don't love drinking the Kool-Aid because I love seeing the product for what it is. I don't believe in stars, this, that, and the other. But if it's free, it's for me. And there's been a lot of Kool-Aid passed out around this Texas basketball team, especially with the hiring of Chris Beard. So I've had a lot of it thus far, and I think I'll be drinking some more of it tonight. Again, that one is at 8 o'clock. It's going to be on the Longhorn Network. Do y'all have Longhorn Network in San Antonio? I know in some areas.
Yes, we do.
So you can watch it, tune in. Houston Baptist. Their next game, sir, will be against Gonzaga on the 13th.
Oh!
This Saturday. So that will be quite a test. It's going to be at 7:30, so it will kind of overlay with that Texas-Kansas game. But I can't imagine which one people would rather see play at this point in the season. Texas basketball versus Gonzaga, or your 4-5 football team against Kansas, who, by the way, Texas, I just checked, opened up as a 30-point favorite over Kansas. That's almost hard to believe.
That's a lot of
considering
points.
where they are. But I digress. We will move on. Sir, we talked a lot about the Manning cast this season, and I feel rightfully so. We obviously talked about the moment when Eli Manning flipped the double bird on live television, thinking, oh, they can just blur this. Well, no, sir. It is live television. And a lot of people thought, one big deal. And then there were a lot of people that thought, oh, the Karens are going to come in hot. They're going to be complaining to the FCC. Well, we officially have the total count. A total of 3 FCC complaints came in. Just for comparison, the Shakira and J-Lo halftime performance received 1,300 FCC complaints following their performance. And I wanted to read to you some of the complaints that they received, just so you could feel it out a little bit. The FCC should take all appropriate enforcement actions against Mr. Manning and or ESPN for Mr. Manning's conduct, to hold them accountable, to send the message that that type of behavior, even if he was retelling a story, is not acceptable, including all appropriate fines. They also went on to say that Eli should be banned from the airwaves. Another note was Mr. Manning's actions are offensive to me as a viewer. It was also offensive as a Philadelphia native and sportsman. And obviously, for those who need a reminder, he flipped the bird in a reenactment of how Philadelphia fans treated him. And now this person says it was offensive for him to recount something that I probably did personally to this man when he was quarterbacking on the opposite end when I went to a game. But okay, sir. He also said there were young children watching that broadcast that evening. How dare you, sir? And finally, I think this one is my favorite, sir. On ESPN's Monday Night Football, Eli Manning used profane gestures that were despicable and unacceptable, and fines should be levied. He went on to say young Americans should never be exposed to something like that. It was disgusting. Well, I hope your young American...
I think Ryan Leaf left that note.
Yeah, I hope your young American doesn't have internet access, or TikTok or Twitter or Instagram, because I'm sorry, but they're exposed to this and much worse every single day. Sir, any reaction from you for these FCC complaints coming in?
I think especially in the era of cable television, and you mentioned the internet and TikTok, I think people need to lighten up and just relax. And I mean, what are you going to do? And he was telling a story, and if you have to guard your children so much that Eli Manning telling a story and showing the double bird is going to destroy the childhood of your child, then maybe you should be very careful about the programming you have your child watch, and maybe you shouldn't have your child watch any program that is on cable television.
Maybe that's on you, parent, for watching that version of the game and not the regular old boring Monday Night Football mundane. We don't rarely see the announcers because they keep the camera on the game the whole time. How ridiculous is that? Maybe stick to that broadcast here in the future. But I'm sure they're tuning in because they're just looking to write that next letter to the FCC, waiting for someone else to trip up on that broadcast. All right, finally today, Chris, I want to move over to this Jordan Love controversy. Not with Aaron Rodgers. We've touched on that. But people are really upset with seemingly the Kansas City Chiefs after it was revealed that Jordan Love, who got his first start against the Kansas City Chiefs over the weekend in an attempt to beat down more on that Kansas City Chiefs team that isn't what we expected them to be, to take over for the Packers, who were without Aaron Rodgers following all of the controversy, and to be the hero that they needed. And his mom was there, his girlfriend was there, and apparently they were seated in the last row at the tippy top of Arrowhead Stadium, and a lot of people are outraged. How dare they put them there? They should give them better seats. That is their son. It is an NFL game. He is starting. How rude. And to that I say, they do that to everyone. They do that to everyone's mom, everyone's dad, everyone's girlfriends, everyone's brothers, everyone's sisters. They all go in the nosebleeds, just like fans in the stands and bands in the stands at college games and other places. That's where they get seated. They are not going to put fans as close as they can to the sidelines because they don't want to hear them. They don't want to hear that smack talk. It's called home field advantage for a reason, and part of having home field is that you have a designated spot to go to. And my other argument here, Chris, is that Jordan Love, no, he's not Aaron Rodgers, but he still makes NFL money. And NFL money is still a lot more money than anyone on the average pay scale could dream of. And therefore, you can afford to get better seats should you want them, right? And if anyone should be blamed, it shouldn't be the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're going to blame an organization, how about you blame the Packers for not saying, oh, ma'am, it's your son's first game. It's a great stadium. It's a great environment. We want you to experience it for all it's worth. We will gift you better seats than what you will be given should you get them through Kansas City in the NFL. We will give you better seats. We will give you the opportunity to witness your son at a field level for his NFL start. They didn't do that. So if you want to blame anybody, blame the Packers, or even blame the Love family themselves for not spending the extra coin just to get a better seat. I don't care that you sat in the nosebleeds. I don't even know that they're upset about it, but just everyone else seems to be. So therefore, I had to speak on it. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Wow, you were extremely salty there on the Jordan Love story. And the last point you made, I think, was the best point. The Green Bay Packers, who have been tone deaf with their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and have allowed Aaron Rodgers to become very disgruntled and want out by all reports. So Jordan Love is your future quarterback. You move up in the first round to go get Jordan Love. If assuming that Jordan Love's going to be there for the next 10 to 15 years, then you need to do with Jordan Love what you didn't do with Aaron Rodgers, and that's make him happy. And even at this early juncture in his career, in his second year, you make a great point. Somebody within the Packer organization should have had the vision to say, hey, this is the dude's first start. His parents are going. Let's do everything we can to see to it that they are happy and they have a wonderful game day experience. And they did not do that. I totally agree with you on that. And I didn't even think about that until you brought it up.
Well, and the fact that Kansas City, again, being what they were, middle of the afternoon game, I can't imagine that it was a sellout.
It was a night game, wasn't it?
It's on StubHub.
I thought it was
a 3:25.
Oh, you're right. It was 3:25. You're right.
It did feel like it went late though because it was Sunday after the sun. You know, everyone's
I remember seeing shots of them at night.
The sun
That's
is
why
setting
I thought it was
early
night.
after we fell forward. Whatever. Everyone's still really surprised about it being dark early, and I'm over here like, I love it. But that's another story.
Yeah.
Way to go, Pack.
Way to go, Pack. An excellent salty shakedown. Yeah, the weird thing about this time change, not only, my God, it's like dark at 5:30, 5:40, but yesterday at like 6:50, I walked out of the studio and we got these big old windows that you will see whenever you come down and visit us, which may be soon.
Mm-hmm.
We got these big old windows in the building, so you step out of the studio, and normally it had been dark until deep into the 7 o'clock hour, but yesterday at like 6:55, I step outside and boom, bright sunlight in the 6 o'clock hour. So if you like sun and you're a morning person and we're up early in the morning doing this show, you get your sunshine just a little bit early. So there's that.
I prefer that as someone who has these work hours. Going to bed when it's dark out instead of in the summer when I'm like wanting to look out my window and everyone's still playing outside because it's light out and I have to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I like this time of year.
Yeah, I bring on the spring as quick as possible. I don't like cold temperatures and I don't like darkness early in the day. But back to college football for a moment. We talked about Baylor and Texas Tech hiring the Baylor associate head coach as now the upcoming head coach at Texas Tech. Really good Big 12 game coming up this weekend in Waco at McLean Stadium. Number 12 Baylor hosting number 8 Oklahoma. Will this finally be the week that Oklahoma, that's kind of, they're 9-0, yes, but they darn near lost a number of those games. Will Baylor finally rise up and beat Oklahoma and hand them a loss? I know we had hoped that the Longhorns would be more in the mix in the Big 12, but a pretty good Big 12 game coming up this weekend in Waco.
Yeah, and I haven't seen a lot from Oklahoma since that Texas game, so I don't know how much they may have found their way. Obviously, that Kansas game was something left a lot to be desired, but it is going to be the marquee matchup, I think, for me this weekend, especially, Big 12 championship implications. Obviously, Texas is no longer in the discussion, but there are a lot of teams up at that tippy top, right? It seems right now Oklahoma State, Baylor, and OU are going to be the ones fighting it out. How does this game, if OU wins, they seemingly will knock Baylor out of it. But could there be some controversy should Baylor win it? Now it is interesting because we typically like to cheer for our teams, right? And then their divisions. If Baylor beats Oklahoma, well then Big 12 can say bye-bye to the college football playoff, I think.
And a mixed bag there.
Yeah.
A, you don't want the Big 12 not to be represented, but B, Oklahoma again. I won't shed too many tears if Oklahoma is out. Sorry, Andy Everett. Sorry, Dylan Emery, but you know how I feel. All right, coming up, let's talk a little more Texas football and even some Texas basketball. Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, joins us next. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. David Valles saying SAFC is in the semifinals. That's very, very cool. Louisa says Jordan Love's mom and girlfriend didn't look upset as they cheered him on. Dean, Mr. Slate says Packers organization is a mess. Yeah, a mess though, but they're 7-2? So I would agree they're a mess, but still winning. Louisa says, anytime OU loses, it's a glorious day. I would agree with that. All right. I am going to get my final shot of coffee for the morning. Warren Wheeler, what is my top 6 college football rankings? Off the top of my head, Georgia number 1. They look unbeatable. Let's see. I would go. I give weight to undefeated, so I would say Cincinnati is undefeated, so I put them in the mix at 2. Oklahoma is undefeated. If I'm going to be real about that, I would put Oklahoma at 3 and undefeated. And now I need one other one. So of your one-loss teams, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Michigan. I hate to say it, and I'd have to compare the other one losses, but of your one-loss teams, Alabama's loss was to Texas A&M, which is ranked and in the SEC. So I would go Georgia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Alabama. Sadly, I'm hoping Alabama loses another one because I have major Alabama fatigue. All right. Grabbing some coffee. I'll be back. Jason Paniagua says, just found I will be going to the Spurs game on Friday. Cool. That'll be the Mavericks.
I too might be going to the Spurs game on Friday.
That would be tremendous. Jason, you
knows?
might have to
Who
cross
knows?
paths with Shannon. We hear that could happen. So Shannon, if you go, are you going to wear Mavericks gear?
I do not own any Mavericks gear.
You do not own. Wow.
Because I hate shopping, and if I don't know what size it is, like I don't want to have to play returns. And there, except when we won the championship in 2011, Academy did have a fair amount of stuff, so I had stuff then. I wore it out, so I don't even have it anymore. But I don't know. I'd have to check out Academy, but they rarely have stuff, and when they do, it's like XXL.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be neutral.
Okay.
Maybe I'll wear a green shirt or something. A Dunkin' Donuts wager. Do love Dunkin'.
Warren says people are sleeping on Ohio State. Who did they lose to?
Oregon.
Oregon. There you go. Okay. Wow. Okay. So then, see, I was putting Alabama in the top 4. I forgot about that. So Oregon beating. Okay. So who is Oregon's loss to, though? Let me find that out. Since Alabama's loss was to A&M and they're ranked.
I think like Ohio State losing to Oregon early on in the season is favorable to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Let me see I totally forgot who Oregon's loss was to. Let's find that one. Yeah, so maybe I do put Ohio State at, because their loss to Oregon is a little more impressive than Alabama's loss to A&M. Thank you. Oh, Oregon's loss is at Stanford, and Stanford's not very good. So, yep. Taylor Estes is on the phone line. Oh, and I have got a little Taylor Estes photo for when we talk to her, which looks a little bit something. Did I put that on here yet? I did. I got to add it. There it is. It will look like that. So I'm going to put Shannon over here. That's how we'll do it. Okay.
This is the Chris Duel Show. You know the day destroys the night. Now, Chris Duel.
On a Taco Tuesday, we got lots to talk about. NFL football, college basketball. A lot of college basketball getting underway tonight across the country, and certainly involving the Texas Longhorns. So this morning when we talk, which was now, with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, not only will we talk Longhorn football, but we'll dive into a little Longhorn basketball as well with Taylor. Let's welcome her in, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. Taylor Estes, how are you this morning? I am doing well. I think we're all maybe doing better than the Texas Longhorn football program. You know, for 3 weeks there, it was, oh my God, they had a double-digit lead against a ranked opponent and then let it get away. And at Iowa State, they had a lead, not a double-digit lead, but they had a lead at halftime, I think 7-3. And then it looked like the bottom fell out in the second half. What do you think that the mood is among the Longhorn football program right now? Are they angry? Are they downtrodden? You know, you cover them day in, day out. How would you characterize the mood of this football program right now?
I mean, I would say that the best word would probably be frustrated. I mean, there's no denying that. I mean, obviously, the way the last 4 games have gone for Texas are forgettable, obviously, especially if you're a Texas fan. And unfortunately for the Longhorns, you know, they can't forget it. And so I think there's a lot of frustration. After the Iowa State game, I was not on the road there, but my coworker was. And, you know, they seemed like they were really beaten up after that game. And what my colleague said, I asked him about it, I said, was it reminiscent of the 2015 trip to Iowa State where Texas was shut out on the road there in Ames in 2015 under Charlie Strong? And he said, yeah, it was very similar to that. So right after the game, you know, the players were definitely in their feelings. They were very upset. But I think overall, I think this program is really frustrated right now, including Steve Sarkisian. He's talked about this openly. You know, it would be one thing if Texas, obviously the Iowa State game is a little different, but it'd be one thing if Texas had just been totally getting destroyed in every single game. The frustration really lies, I think, in the fact that Texas has played some really close games, and so they know they're capable of being able to play, you know, a high level of football. But the frustration sets in is they have not shown up to be capable to play a high level of football for 4 quarters or consistently. And so, you know, there's a lot of work to be done, and that's hard to say, you know, with 3 games left on the season, especially considering Texas needs to win 2 of those last 3 games in order to become bowl eligible. So, you know, the mood's definitely frustration. I think that, you know, there's a lot of angst probably from Texas fans, and I would imagine from Steve Sarkisian as well. I mean, you don't want to be one of the first coaches at Texas to not go to a bowl game in your first year as head coach. So, you know, I guess it's a good thing that Kansas is coming down, I think. I'll say that this week because Texas is heavily favored in that game. But overall, you know, I think that the team is definitely kind of in their feelings, and it's understandably so after the way the last month of games have gone.
Taylor, during Sark's presser yesterday, he did reveal Joshua Moore no longer with the team. He's going to be entering the transfer portal. This comes after the tail end of last week, apparently an issue during practice. Sark chalked it up to just him being coached hard. But given the loss and given that he's entering the transfer portal now, what do we kind of make of this story? And do you think we may have some more players follow suit here with the way things are going right now?
Well, you know, I think what you make of the Joshua Moore story, you know, I know that some people weren't too thrilled with that being reported. We were one of the sites that did report about the incident. That, you know, there was a heated disagreement at practice. I believe it was last Wednesday leading into the Iowa State game. And, I mean, it was substantial enough to where we were hearing that Joshua Moore cleared out his locker last Wednesday. And so, you know, it was kind of chalked up as just being coached hard and should have never left the program. Even some other media outlets said that. And I think that's wrong because obviously this was a bigger deal than just, you know, some practice locker room scuffle type of thing or a disagreement between Joshua Moore and the coaching staff. It was, you know, definitely him being coached hard, and especially rightfully so, you know, coming out of that Baylor game. I mean, he struggled in that game with, you know, dropped 2 passes, one for an interception, had that fumble. I mean, he needed to be coached hard, I think, and he did not like that. And so, you know, he did cooler tempers, you know, kind of move forward, and he was able to go to the Iowa State game. Obviously, if you saw, he did not start the game. He came in after the first quarter, but, you know, there's just been I think that anytime that there's a new coaching staff that takes over a football program, you're going to expect some sort of roster attrition, just because for a variety of reasons. I mean, whether it's the players, they're playing for the coaches that recruited them, to just, change the personality, change the offensive philosophy. There's so many different things that go into it. So you always expect some roster attrition. I don't necessarily think you expect it 9 games into the season. That was a little interesting timing, I would say, for that. But, when it comes to other players, I think that, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's about to be a huge exodus of Texas players, because I don't necessarily believe that's the case. But I do think that it would be surprising to me if there was not further roster attrition after the season, just with how anytime that, a new coaching staff comes in and takes over, that's really expected. So I'm not saying that's for sure going to happen, but I think it's something to watch, moving forward, just with Steve Sarkisian and his staff trying to build the culture that they're trying to build at Texas, and make sure that they have the right guys that fit the culture and are willing to do what's necessary for them. And if not, they're going to bring in their own guys. So it's definitely something to watch. But Joshua Moore is, officially in the transfer portal, and Steve Sarkisian confirmed that he is no longer with the team.
We're talking Longhorn football, and in a bit we'll talk some Longhorn basketball with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. But at the moment, Taylor, talking football, the quarterback situation, Casey Thompson replaced by Hudson Card at Iowa State. There was a thumb issue with Casey Thompson. Shannon and I were talking about this earlier. In these final 3 games, it would be nice to establish a starting quarterback moving forward as we look ahead to next season. Obviously, first things first, becoming bowl eligible and hopefully getting into a bowl game. But from your perspective, who do you think is going to be, or will we know who's going to be the long-term quarterback for the Longhorns, Casey Thompson or Hudson Card?
I mean, I don't know if that is determined right now. I think that, Steve Sarkisian did say Monday that Casey Thompson, kind of re-aggravated that thumb injury that he originally suffered against Oklahoma. And he did re-aggravate it later in the Baylor game. And he did feel that probably did hinder him a little bit against Iowa State. If that's not 100%, I imagine that he will not roll, to start, I think, against Kansas this week, if that continues. I mean, Steve Sarkisian has said that he's going to continue to assess the position and assess, just see which guy kind of makes it through practice, and they'll make a decision later on in the week. So there is no decision made right now, but that's something to watch with Casey Thompson's thumb being re-aggravated. And, I think that probably is why you saw some of the performance against Iowa State. But for the long-term, future of the position, I really don't necessarily think that anybody can say with 100% certainty who the guy should be right now. And if the guy is on campus. I mean, I think that Casey Thompson has shown a lot of spark in games. He's shown to be a very capable quarterback, but there's no denying that the quarterback play has regressed, in the Oklahoma State game. That was really not good against Oklahoma State. Obviously, Baylor, I think it was okay. I think he didn't get very much help from his receivers. And then obviously Iowa State was an atrocious, showing, I think, for both quarterbacks. But, I think that this is something that the coaching staff's going to really have to decide, I think, this offseason, if they do have a guy that they feel that could be the future for the position, or at least in 2022. And if not, if they're going to have to hit the transfer portal. And I honestly, if I'm Steve Sarkisian right now, I'm probably looking at the transfer portal to see if there's, another capable guy out there.
Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
There has been some murmurs, about Quinn Ewers, the former Texas commit that ended up going to Ohio State, that he may enter the portal. That's not official or anything right now, but that has been kind of speculated that if that were the case, I mean, if you're Steve Sarkisian, you almost have to go, full gun blazing into that one. But, I think that overall, I think that the future of the quarterback position at Texas right now is probably more unknown. And I'm not sure at this point that either guy has really solidified himself to be the quote-unquote future, at least into 2022 season. I think Casey Thompson probably has the advantage right now because he has played more games, but, you can't overlook the fact that, he has not been consistently, playing well. And he has, it's not just him, obviously. The offensive line has been struggling. The receivers have not been consistent when catching the ball when it comes their way. So there's, a lot that goes into it. But I think that right now the future of the quarterback position at Texas is unknown.
Taylor, as a Texas fan, I feel defeated. 4 losses in a row, almost unheard of. And to take them in the way Texas had, it's really hard to get over. And if you feel like maybe this is rock bottom, you have Kansas coming to town to play at DKR. I'm like, please don't make this 2016. Please don't have the unthinkable happen on our home turf, which would also be a 5th loss in the row. I guess some would say to get up, you got to hit rock bottom first, and that would certainly be it if we're not at it already. But Sark yesterday during his presser did say, to get his team to help not overlook this 1-8 Kansas team, that they should go back and review that Kansas-Oklahoma game. That game, of course, Kansas had the lead there for a little bit. Oklahoma not playing well. They actually opened the stands up for fans to come in. No ticket needed to try and cheer on that Jayhawks team. Given how Texas performed against Oklahoma, using the transitive property here, my math skills coming in handy, how should Texas view this Kansas team? And do you see any threat or any possibility that they could come into DKR and shock everyone?
I don't want to say, yeah, for sure, because obviously this is a struggling Kansas team, but you have to look at what Kansas did against Oklahoma. I mean, Kansas was leading for a very large part of that game. I mean, a big turning point was when Caleb Williams basically stole the ball from his running back, which a play that I didn't even realize was legal, but it is. It was a very heads-up play by him, to kind of move the change there late in the game. But, yeah, there's no denying. I think if Texas were to come out flat or just look at it as, oh, it's Kansas, we're good, then they could get punched in the mouth. And the Jayhawks did that definitely to Oklahoma 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I believe that they played 3 weeks ago, that they played each other. So there's no denying that Kansas has the ability to shock a good team like in Oklahoma. So Texas definitely cannot take this game lightly. And, Shannon, if you go back to the last few games that Texas and Kansas have played.
Doing the contest right after this.
The last 2 games between Texas and Kansas have been decided by a combined 9 points. That's all that Texas has won by. They didn't play in 2020 because Kansas had to cancel the game due to COVID issues on the roster. But you go back to 2019, Texas needed at home a last-second field goal to win that game 50-48. And then you even go back to 2018, the Texas team that ended up going to play for a Big 12 title the week before. I mean, they only beat Kansas by 7 points. So, there's no denying that Kansas is Kansas, no doubt about it. And if Texas does their job, then we're not talking about this at all. But there is no denying that Kansas has been able to play closer with Texas in the last few years. And the Longhorns definitely cannot overlook this. And, Steve Sarkisian is right. Put on the tape of what they did to Oklahoma. And you want to think, that this is a cupcake type of game. It's not, because Oklahoma is a much better football team right now than Texas is. And if they played it that close, then absolutely, if Texas doesn't take them seriously, then this could be a shocking game. But I'm not going to say that's for sure going to happen. I'm not going to be doom and gloom for Texas fans. I feel like they've already been through enough, been through the ringer in the last month. So I don't necessarily see that happening. But, if Texas is not fully prepared, I think it could be a possibility.
We're talking all things Texas Longhorns with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. But right now at 8:20, just for a sec, taking a quick time out. We do this on the 20s all day long into the night. It's our grand in your hand cash contest. It goes like this.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword cash to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's cash to 200-200.
Cash is the keyword. Best of luck. Taylor Estes, let's dive into Texas Longhorn basketball. They will be underway tonight at the Frank Irwin Center. They host Houston Baptist. That'll be 8 o'clock tonight, tip-off. I got my Sports Illustrated a few days ago, the college basketball issue, and they pick the Texas Longhorns in the Final Four, which I thought was amazing. Do you think maybe it might be a little bit of a weight on the shoulders of Chris Beard to have such high expectations his first year out as the new Texas Longhorns coach?
I don't think that it's surprising to him at all. I mean, those are some very high expectations, and I think if you're a Texas basketball fan, you hear that, and you're almost afraid to get excited about it, because Texas basketball has really, I feel like any time they had preseason hype has been a letdown of the year. But, Chris Beard, when he came in, he knew what the expectations were at Texas, and he fully accepted it. He said that, this is not, I don't look at this as a rebuild. I look at this as we're going to win in year one. So he knows, he's a fiery coach. He knows what is expected of him, and he knows what his expectations are for this program, and it's much more than what the program has been able to do in the last several years for the Texas men's basketball program, probably dating back even to the Rick Barnes era, I would say. But yeah, he's done a really good job at this point, of adding a lot of transfers, a lot of key transfers, and that's going to be a really crucial, move, I think, throughout this year of the team that Chris Beard was able to build. You look at what Chris Beard has done so far. One of the biggest things that he has really focused on since he's been at Texas is kind of the team building aspect of, making sure that the guys on the roster, since they came from so many different places and were, put onto a very limited roster at Texas, he wanted to make sure that they all, kind of got to know each other better. He's been doing a lot of team building activities with them. 3 weeks ago, Chris Beard took the players on a 2-day retreat to a campsite and just basically let the guys open up and tell their personal stories so that they could get to know each other from a personal level. Because, the thought process is if you get to know each other on a personal level, you fight more for the guy, when he's next to you on the court. And so I think that, at this point, Chris Beard's really doing everything right. I think there's a lot of excitement around this Texas basketball program. I think he's done a really, really good job, especially in the transfer portal in year one, of getting some guys in that could be difference makers, for Texas. And obviously the national media and the voters of the polls definitely think that too, with Texas starting off at preseason number 5 favorite. So yeah, there's definitely high expectations, but I think that Chris Beard knows what it takes and could have the roster for what it takes to really be solid in year one.
Taylor, before we let you go, I want to turn it back to football really quickly. We didn't get a chance to talk to you last week, and there's been some news that's come out as far as coaches are concerned. Texas Tech announced yesterday Joey McGuire, formerly from Baylor, will be their new head coach. And then going into last week, we get the news that Gary Patterson is out at TCU after such a long run. He's had down years before. What are your thoughts on coaches this year getting let go in the middle of the season, and then schools hiring still within the same season? And then for Gary Patterson, what's that TCU program going to look like without him? He was there for over 20 years. Do you feel like this happened now because he's got somewhere else he wants to go, or TCU had just kind of had enough?
That's a good question. I think that if you look at TCU in the last few years, they've really been not a great program. I know that they've beaten Texas, except for this past year, but they always seem to have Texas number. But, the program's kind of just been steadily declining to mediocrity. I'm not going to say fully declining, so I think that that's not necessarily the case for TCU. But it's been a pretty mediocre program for the last few years. And I think that, with Gary Patterson and what he has done at TCU, he is TCU football. He is a statue, already on campus of himself that, he walked by when he went into work every day. So he's done such a fantastic job with that program, regardless of what's happened in recent years. It doesn't erase, what he has been to TCU football. So, part of me wonders if this move was made now so that it doesn't come down to a situation where if they have another mediocre season, then they have to fire him, because you don't want to fire, the legendary coach that built up your football program. And that's what Gary Patterson really is to TCU. So that would be my, from an outsider perspective, if I'm looking at that, for why they may have made that decision, just mainly, to make sure that he can kind of go out on his own terms. But, when it comes overall to changing coaches mid-year, I really don't like it, because if you look at what does that necessarily say to the players? It's essentially saying this season is a wash. Do they want those players to not show up anymore? That's kind of how I take it. I think that is not a good look for a program to fire a coach midseason. The Texas Tech situation, I really was baffled by that. I think I told you guys this. I truly believe that it was probably that Matt Wells was winning a little bit too much, and they already wanted to make that change, so they needed to get rid of him before they became bowl eligible for the first time in 2017. I think the Joey McGuire hire is an interesting hire. I think it obviously could work out with Joey McGuire having a lot of relationships in the state of Texas dating back to when he was a high school coach too. So that's I think it could work out there. I think Texas Tech fans really need to grasp him as a head coach, and they need to give him time to build the program, because that's been a program that's been really kind of in shambles a little bit, in the last several years. So, if they give him time, I think that could really work out well. But overall, the whole firing coaches midseason, I'm not a big fan of it, unless they do something absolutely atrocious that they deserve to be fired. That's more so what, I think would be acceptable. But doing so because of a losing record or struggles or anything like that, I think it just shows a bad message to the players, showing essentially that the administration is quitting on the season. So why should the players even continue playing? That's the way I look at it.
Taylor Estes is a great follow on Twitter at Taylor Estes 24/7. There you can find links to all of her coverage at Horns 24/7, including the YouTube channel, which is Horns 24/7, where you can see a lot of great coverage from Taylor, Chip Brown. It's tremendous Texas Longhorn coverage. Taylor, great stuff. Enjoy the basketball game tonight, and we'll talk again next week.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Coming up, lots more to talk about. The Aaron Rodgers situation results in a statement from State Farm, who he does the commercials for. We got more trouble in Las Vegas Raider land to get to. More NFL and college football talk coming your way. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. All right. Let's see here. Oh, that's loud. In this next segment, we'll talk a little bit about Mac Jones and his dirty play against the Panthers' Brian Burns in their game on Sunday, a Patriots 24-7 win over the Panthers. Speaking of cheap shots, Nikola Jokic, the Joker of the Denver Nuggets, accused of a cheap shot as well. More Raiders strangeness, and State Farm issues a statement amid the Aaron Rodgers controversy. All kinds of fun stuff going on in the world of sports. Here we come.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. By dialing 1-800-707-9760.
And that phone number is always open for you if you want to jump in and sound off on anything we are talking about, or if you've got something on your mind in the sports world or the world in general, we'll yap with you. All right, Shannon, before we dive back into some sports stories, Dave Ayler has provided us with some information on what today actually is. It's not just a Taco Tuesday on November 9th. It is also National Scrapple Day. I did not know what Scrapple was. Do you know what Scrapple is, Shannon?
Is that the drink?
No, I thought
That's Snapple.
That's Snapple.
I don't know what Scrapple.
Scrapple is a board game.
Right.
Dave Ayler, did you know what Scrapple was before you pulled this story?
Yes, I did. It's like some kind of processed, or it's kind of like meatloaf, but not meatloaf though.
I know it is. To be more accurate, it is a combination of pork scraps, cornmeal, white wheat flour, and spices. It dates back over 200 years when Dutch colonists created it in the Philadelphia area. Scrapple.
I've heard it's kind of popular in like Nashville and Tennessee because I've seen it on shows and it doesn't look appetizing at all.
It can be eaten for breakfast and served with syrup or ketchup. Scrapple.
If a meal can be served with either ketchup or syrup, there is something wrong.
Ugh.
Syrup on pork doesn't sound right.
No wonder Philadelphia fans are so cranky and mean. They're eating Scrapple. That's no wonder.
I mean, I like meatloaf, but I think today I'll stick to tacos.
Yeah, I think I will.
Scrapple.
I will avoid Scrapple to the best of my ability today. It is also, this is a weird one, Chaos Never Dies Day. You're supposed to embrace the chaos in your life.
That's every day around this place.
Yeah, we work on radio.
There you go. And finally, today is Young Readers Day. So I wonder if kids now that are so wired and have their own phones and have the internet, I wonder if they're reading as much as we did when we were kids.
I mean,
I got to believe attention spans are shorter.
They still get assigned reading. I mean, I barely read just because I don't like reading, like books. But follow me, kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great question. I wonder if they still have like the AR programs where you read and then take tests and you get points, and then there's like pizza parties as rewards.
Yeah. Well, back to the Scrapple for one moment. Jason Paniagua on the live video feed says syrup or ketchup is only acceptable with scrambled eggs.
Yes, the one, but I don't do ketchup. I do hot sauce.
I've never put syrup on my scrambled eggs. I put ketchup.
Yeah, because I'm not a big egg person, so if I get scrambled eggs, I just douse it in something that makes it not taste like scrambled egg.
Wow.
If it's not a taco, I need it to be doused in something.
There you go. But eggs go very, very well in tacos. A breakfast taco with eggs and beans and cheese and salsa, and I am in. I am there for that.
I think if you don't have egg in your taco, then it's not considered a breakfast taco. And
there you go.
I will die on that hill.
Boom. I think you are correct on a Taco Tuesday. All right, back into sports. A couple of cheap shots or dirty play players, one in football, one in basketball in the news this morning. Mac Jones, quarterback of the New England Patriots, Shannon, he is being labeled as a dirty player for something he did against the Panthers on Sunday.
Yeah, so the Patriots played the Panthers. Mac Jones gets hit pretty hard. He goes down, and he claims now after the fact that he thought Markieff Morris had the ball, and that's why he was trying to tackle him. If you see the video, and there's lots of different angles out now, Mac Jones on the ground grabs Morris's ankle, but it's not just that. He then twists the ankle to throw him down to the ground. Wow. Morris just have a pretty badly sprained ankle now after the fact. So, at first you're like, bang, 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 play. It's all quick. Okay, that's fine. But then when you see the twist and after the fact, no, that's pretty dirty. I don't know where he learned that, if they're teaching that down there in Alabama, but it's unfortunate for him. I think early on in his career, he's now going to have this label kind of following him around. And once you get named a dirty player, I don't know how you get over that. Right? I mean, do you send flowers in a handwritten note and hope that he Instagrams about it and your name is cleared? I don't know how you get over that kind of thing, or if you're going to have that label with you for a long time.
And it makes me think that defensive players now, if that's his label, are going to want to, on the bottom of a pile, they're probably going to do some things to him.
Grab my foot. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that could be true as well.
So you've got that in the NFL, and Nikola Jokic of the Joker of the Denver Nuggets has a similar situation going on as well. He's he had is accused of taking a cheap shot as well.
I'm so sorry. I was referring to Markieff Morris as that's the Carolina player.
Yeah, it was
That's
Brian
totally
Burns.
I can't read my own writing.
The Carolina player
that was
Brian
Burns. Morris is the guy of the Heat who was laid out by Nikolai last night. Now, this one's a little bit more interesting in that he had just seemingly fouled Jokic earlier in a layup attempt. And then prior to Nikolai laying
Jokic,
up a shot,
the Joker
to end, I don't know if it was the quarter or what, but Morris kind of shoved him a little bit and he was in the air, so that technically would have been dangerous, but he walks off after the fact and Nikolai runs up behind him. I don't know if you've seen the video, Chris, but he body slams this dude and he hits the ground hard. The Heat team, rightfully so, up in arms. Nikolai just kind of walks over and sits on the bench and acts like nothing really happened. I think he said after the fact he regretted it. He will surely receive some fines and probably some suspensions coming from that. But it was nasty. I mean, it was a cheap shot for sure. And whether or not Morris intentionally tried to foul him, push him, whatever, and got away with it, I don't think that retaliation, especially at that level, is warranted.
Totally agree with that. So there's your cheap shot in the NFL, cheap shot in the NBA. Now, as if things weren't bad enough, Shannon, for the the Las Vegas Raiders, LA, Oakland, they've been all over the place. They're in Vegas now, the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll get that straight. Another player, and this one was a first-round draft pick, a cornerback, Damon Arnett, who was apparently threatening someone with firearms on TikTok. And apparently this guy's had a history of bad behavior for the Raiders ever since they drafted him in 2020. So Raiders back in the news with this guy yesterday.
Listen, I know we're in the middle of the season right now, and so it's going to be hard to do, but we just talked to Taylor Estes, so she's talked to us about Chris Beard and this basketball team. If they went on a little camping excursion and they all talked about their personal stories, they laid it all out there to get to know each other. I think the Raiders need to do something very similar. They need to go through everyone's closets. They need to look under everyone's beds. They need to do like web searches and go through every single one of their social media posts, whether it's their regulars or if they've got some KD-like accounts just as backups to go through and talk great about themselves after a game. They need to go through all of it because the Raiders, I don't know how much more they can take as far as PR and PR-wise, because and Derek Carr can only lead men so much. I mean, he's not going to have any men to lead if the Raiders keep getting rid of people left and right, because they did get rid of Damon Arnett following this video. They just said they can't support it. They did have a lengthy discussion about it because obviously he hasn't really done anything, right? He didn't actually go out and kill somebody with these guns, but to have that, you have to set a standard. And clearly they're having some issues across the board right now that it's just in their best move. And I think they're right to let Arnett go at this point. But my goodness.
Yeah. In addition,
and for it to be on the Raiders of all the teams, like the teams that's always kind of been labeled the thugs, if you will, right? Like and their fans are wild and crazy, and they've got these guys are the big bad mean Raiders, and then to have these guys, Gruden, Ruggs.
Yeah, Damon Arnett, in addition to this, he is currently also, before this, threatening someone with firearms on TikTok. He is being sued by a woman for crashing his car into hers while he was speeding, which is very Henry Ruggs-like. And he's also being sued by a valet at a Las Vegas casino for spitting on the valet. So he crashed his vehicle into a woman. He's being sued for that. He spat allegedly upon a valet at a Las Vegas casino, and then threatening a dude on TikTok with firearms. Not a good look, Damon Arnett.
I feel so bad for all the good eggs on that Raiders team because there are plenty of them. They're the majority. But a few rotten ones that we've had come out in the past several weeks are leading the headlines for this team that is otherwise having a pretty decent season and in a division that is very winnable. And that should be the story. And it's just they can't get away from these things. So good on the Raiders for not accepting even the threats. For those that haven't seen the video, it's very strange because he was carrying a very large weapon as well. I mean, it almost looked like something out of a video game. I don't think I've ever seen someone hold one of those in real life. It just absolute craziness.
Finally, State Farm, after all the Aaron Rodgers controversy and all of Aaron Rodgers' misinformation that he's putting out there about COVID-19, they finally had to release a statement saying Aaron Rodgers has been a great ambassador for our brand, State Farm, but we don't stand behind all of the things he says, and some of the things he says are misinformation. So State Farm trying to maintain its relationship with Aaron Rodgers, but pointing out that they don't stand behind everything he says and does.
Yeah, it was kind of a agree to disagree, right? We agree that you have your right to feel the way you feel. We just don't agree with the way you feel. But I mean, technically, I don't know what his contract looks like. I don't know that he violated anything. There's probably nothing in his contract that's like, if the government comes out with an FDA-approved vaccine for a pandemic and you choose not to take it, this contract is now no, there's nothing like that. And I think for them, like, he has been a pretty great and long-standing ambassador. And if anything, he's garnering more attention for them, unless they start taking a hit with people calling in and being like, because of Aaron Rodgers and your stance on him, I am now dropping my coverage. They're going to keep him.
Going to be interesting to see what happens next for Aaron Rodgers. And it was our poll question this morning, Shannon. What penalty should the NFL impose on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers for COVID protocol violations? What did we learn this morning from our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, certainly a hot button topic right now. 32% saying no penalty, 7% saying a suspension for Rodgers, 20% saying fine the Packers, and 40% saying a suspension and a fine.
I do find the no penalty people interesting. Aaron, and again, we talked about it yesterday. Cole Beasley and Kirk Cousins are up front about their saying, hey, I don't believe in it. I'm not getting vaccinated. Tough, deal with it. Aaron Rodgers misled people. I mean, and it's a health issue, and it is potentially a life and death issue if you get infected by Aaron Rodgers. And I find it interesting. There's some people go, no harm, no foul, ain't no big thing.
Yeah, I think there may be people that are just tired of the battle that has become the vaccine, and I get that. But in this case, I voted for fine the Packers, personally.
Yeah, I just think that I think to get Aaron Rodgers' attention, you need to suspend him for a game. And to get the Packers' attention, you need to do something big, maybe even draft picks. I think I saw Shannon Sharp on this yesterday. I think he was probably, I agree with him on that. So we got Longhorn basketball tonight against, is it Houston Baptist?
Houston Baptist.
Yes, all right.
Club Irwin, 8 o'clock.
And then the reveal tonight at about 8 o'clock on the Four Letter Network, the college football playoff poll. Pick a number. Where do you think UTSA is going to land tonight in the top 25 on their poll?
21.
I think that's a good number. I think they will be on that.
If they put them in there, the people will be quiet. They don't give them much more respect than that.
We shall see. All right. Great show, Shannon. We'll do this again in 21 hours.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it.
Dave Ayler, outstanding. Good to have you back, sir.
Thank you.
Our thanks as well to Taylor Estes of Horns 24/7. Go eat a taco. It's Taco Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, y'all. Foamfoot 420 says work sucks today. Sorry about that. Louisa says Aaron Rodgers is a liar. Thank you, Ralph Balderas. Thank you, everybody. We will see you in 24 hours. Until then, farewell. Enjoy tacos. See you later. Bye-bye.